Right.
Alright,
Okay.
now the other media discussion.
Yeah, so let's get into that.
Since I've been talking a lot, you can start this section off.
Okay. So, in terms of other media, to kind of reiterate, we talked about what we did over the summer, but now that, a week has passed, now we're talking about, the things we've done in between.
Weeks, which not
Yeah.
much since this isn't the summer and there not much has really happened in terms of new necessarily new media in terms of TV shows or movies or games. So we're just gonna in this part we're just basically gonna talk about certain things we've been watching or playing in the past week.
Right. So, I'll start by saying that I saw the Angry Video Game Nerd film, which was very anticipated among the fans for quite a few years. I mean, I've been following him for, oh gosh, about 6 years, I would say. I've been following him about since '08. And I finally got a chance to see the film. And I'm not going to go into too many spoilers. In fact, I'm going to keep this completely spoiler free because I'm going to have a full written review on Mystic. But in short terms,
If you want to see that review, join the Mystic Forum and go on to the
yeah,
movie section to find his review.
yeah, you'll see it. Okay, so in short terms,
Put it in the description below.
I thought it was a very good movie for its genre and its budget. I had my issues, and I'll say one of my issues now, spoiler free, is one of the resolution plot points was forced, and I'll explain more of that in my written review. But there's a certain interaction between two characters that felt far too forced because there was no build up. There was really no general progression. There was no flow to it. It just kind of happened, and it it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. It was just kind of eh. That was my one issue. Another issue I had was the secondary main character, who like the sidekick, if you will, to the nerd. I thought he did not belong in the film, and it's unfortunate because I thought James did his thing. He was awesome. He was his usual self. He did great, but his sidekick, he he felt like he didn't have a place in the story. He just felt like he was just kind of there. He was just kind of there just to add, like just as a filler character. He didn't hold any monumental importance to the nerd's character prior to the film. He didn't really hold a ton of monumental impact to the nerd himself. Just slight voice of reason, I guess you could say. But other than that, he had little to no point. And to be honest, I didn't care for his character very much. I thought he was okay, not bad, not good, just neutral, and that's not good for a secondary character, like the secondary main, essentially. The girl character that was fine. I thought she was done okay. The particular fight scene that she had, they gave her one fight scene. It was horrible because they interrupted it and they only showed like 2 seconds of it at a time and ended it. Just yeah, it was bad. But other than that, pretty much everything else was good. I like the OST was good. I thought the acting was good for its budget. Some of it was good, some of it was a little cheesy. I liked some of the references, like Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, had a cameo in there. Lloyd Kaufman had a cameo. So if you guys don't know who he is, he's the CEO, I think, of Troma, which is a company that did like old school like uh, M rate or whatever rated movies, R and X rated movies, back in like the 90s and the 80s or whatever. There weren't too many other cameos, but story was written relatively well. I thought the casting was good. Pretty much everything was good. I liked the special effects for the budget. I thought they could have made it slightly less obvious when they were using miniatures for cars and other vehicles, but other than that, I'm gonna say it was a good film. Definitely basing it on its budget, because it's a low budget film, because it had to have been. It was a low budget film, and it was made well for a low budget film. So that about does it for that film.
What about anything you've been playing in the last week?
Okay, so I'll just go through my whole list then, and then you go through your list. Okay, that
Well, list, but okay.
So in terms of anime, I started. I don't know if I mentioned this last week. I might have watched the first episode of Kill la Kill, and I might have mentioned it last week. But I've been getting into Kill la Kill. I'm up to like episode 9 or something like that, and it's good. So
wait, there's like 25. There's like 24 episodes.
Yeah, and
not much to get into.
No, it's a good anime. It's written and drawn by the same people, like same two people that did Gurren Lagann. But
I could tell just from the art on the cover of Netflix.
Yeah.
Since I'm assuming that's when you've been watching it, because it's funny because it's just hilarious when there's only one person in my house watching Netflix and it says there's 2 people. If you catch my drift.
Right.
And I kind of figured that, it must be... I'm sure if I go onto the one profile, I'll see Kill la Kill being watched on Netflix.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so, the funny thing, though, is that Kill la Kill is actually a downgrade in animation from TTGL. Unfortunately, it has its moments where it's good animation, but in general, it's not as good. And TTGL was really 2007.
Good. Yeah, I know. No, but it's...
Yeah.
But, I mean, Gurren Lagann was a really good anime.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Like, it showed that you could still have an extremely large-scale, expansive story that is played off very well in a shorter setting, anime with less episodes.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it fit all of the grand scale and, like, epicness I felt of, like, long animes into, like, however many episodes it was.
Yeah, it was 26.
20? Wait, only 26. Gurren Lagann was only 26 episodes?
Yeah, technically 27, but, like, the 14th episode was or whatever it was, the 14th episode was literally, like, an illustration. Like, it was talking about illustrations. It had nothing to do with an actual episode.
I thought there was that one random episode where they spent the entire... I thought it was like an entire, like, recap of the entire first half.
Yeah, it was, with, like, some illustrations.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, it doesn't really count.
Yeah, so it was 26.
Yeah, but still, the fact that they fit so much content, story, lore, and, like, the amount of stuff that they fit into those 26 episodes, most other animes do in, like, 100 or more. And that shows you that an anime can tell the whole story in, 26 episodes.
Yeah, in the hands of a good writer.
With the hands of a good writer.
Yeah.
But of course, it had this all start with a good manga, which is why I usually dislike the idea of manga. Like, it wasn't until I started reading manga that I started realizing how ridiculous it was because most animes For those of you who don't know, their average length is like 25, 26 episodes is the average anime length.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a decent amount of long ones, but if you look at every single anime out there, most of them are going to be in the mid-20s.
24 to 26 is the usual.
So, now some cover all the content in that amount of time, some don't, but of those that don't, it's not necessarily always known or made obvious by the end of the anime that it didn't cover everything. Case in point, the anime I consider the funniest anime I've ever seen, Orange High School Host Club. It was the funniest anime I've ever seen, in my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But the main issue I had with it later on was that when I found out that the manga had so much more.
Right.
And it wasn't obvious at the end. Now, there were certain other animes I've seen, where you could tell, based on the story, that there was still more that had to be told, but wasn't told.
Yeah.
Now, that could have been the case. Now, some of them were done, it was done for various reasons. Others, they were just, it was fell prey to the typical anime length run, where it didn't matter how good the story was, they were only going to run the typical length.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the regular media, not the non-anime media. We never even got to the gaming. Your gaming.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So yeah, Kill la Kill is what I've been watching, anime-wise. In terms of gaming, I don't know if I've been playing anything different from the usual. If I think about it. Oh yeah. Been playing the first. I don't know if I mentioned it. I was playing the first DMC for PS2. I'm gonna talk about that at the end anyway, because I'm plugging my stream. So anyway, I think that's about it. Because I haven't really seen any other movies in the past week or anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't a very eventful week. Well, sort of. I mean, yes and no. In terms of movies, the only movies I've watched in the past week were movies I've already seen, and it was rewatching movies that my dad would always watch with us when we were growing up, or when we were younger, which was the Sister Act movies, 1 and 2. And one, because, the music, I enjoyed the music, and I have the music on my phone, so occasionally when I listen to the songs on my phone enough, I'll get in the mood to watch it, and last week I did. And it was good because the situation of watching a movie on my TV, as opposed to watching something on my computer, especially something I've seen a lot, it's actually very helpful to me when it comes to writing my pick. But, and in terms of TV shows, as I mentioned last week, yes, I'm not afraid to admit it, I've been watching Power. Since last week, I finished the one season, which I believe was Mystic Force at the time of last week's recording, and then finished off, after that, 3 other Power Ranger series. Now, yes, they were, now that I've seen the only one left I haven't seen is the Samurai series. And, well, I've seen some of the episodes, but I'm going through to watch them all so I can get the full feel for them. But since I've seen all of the series they've made up to this point, except for one, fully, it's safe to, just like with any other TV show that's this long, it goes through highs and lows. Like, I'm sure a lot of the people who are around our ages, the ages of me and Strider, probably watched Mighty Morphin and maybe like Zeo and Turbo maybe at the latest, with some going even as far as in space. But most of the people who were our age, probably stopped watching it after that. For most of them, not all of them, because if if that was the case, then we wouldn't have Morphicons.
Hmm.
And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's a it's not an anime convention. It's not a comic book convention. It's a Power Rangers convention. Anyway, and so the series after that, since they went through several different companies producing it and several different companies releasing it on their channels, the series qualities changed from season to season, or they call them seasons, but I call them series because it's not the same. Like, it's different outfits, different characters. Because one of the things that happened in the earlier parts of Power Rangers was you had the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and then it was the same range, and then they transitioned to the next. They became the Next Rangers, and then the Zero Rangers became the Turbo Rangers. And yes, there were some character changes during these, but it was the fact that at the end of one series, they moved on and became the next series of Rangers. But after that, they always started with a new cast, with new characters, and had to have an origin story at the beginning of each series. But each series varied. Some were good, some weren't. Now, my initial thought for, I think the last one that I really followed, like I followed, the last one I really followed was Lost Galaxy, which is the one right after In Space. Then I kind of wasn't really paying attention for a while, fully. Like, I watched a little bit of the other ones, and then I kind of got back into it again, and they came out with the Ninja one and the Dino one where Tommy came back. And then I fell out of it again because it started to. I wasn't really interested. I mean, so I was losing interest in it again, and I just assumed that the ones after that were kind of bad. I mean, I kind of sort of saw the one after the dinosaur one was okay, but then now having actually getting this to watch it, so I can give a full judgment at the series that followed the Dino one, and including the Dino one, which was part of that whole era of of Disney having Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, it wasn't the series they produced weren't too bad, except for one in particular. Now, there's two I'm going to briefly talk about just because they stand out. One was the one they did, in my opinion, was done terribly. And the other one I'm going to mention because I felt they hit a home run. The first one, the terrible one, was the series that they referred to as Power Rangers Operation Overlord. The concept is that 5 Rangers had to come together to stop the bad guys from getting an item called the Corona Aurora, which is a crown with 5 gems on it that can bestow immense power. Now, the villains were brothers. But what made it bad, this is where it started to go downhill with the villains. Is the main reason why I thought it was a bad series. Because right off the bat, you had 2 villains. One brother had ice focused power, while the other one was fire focused. So they were off the bat they were fighting each other. So instead of fighting one villain organization like all the other Rangers, it was 2 villain organizations in a sense. And then as the following episodes came, we got 2 more villain factions came in, and there ended up being 4 villain factions and the 1 Ranger faction focusing on trying to get this crown and the 5 gems. Now, one of the good things they did do was the whole thing where they had to find ancient relics to solve the riddle as to where each of the gems were. But other than that, it was kind of crap because of the fact that, unlike all the other series, because there were 4 different villain factions, they had to make sure that each villain faction was getting its, proper screen time, I guess. So it ended up this plot ended up being more fractured and not none of the villains seemed that powerful or evil because you kept splitting the time between all the villain factions, especially since there was only 32 episodes in the season. So, like, on average, each villain maybe got 8 episodes that were focused on their plots, bad guy plots. So it's almost like getting an 8-episode series, but 4 times. Now, the other series that I'm going to mention that I felt they hit out of the park was the last series that Disney had made, and that was one referred to as Power Rangers RPM. Now, this one stands out because it is quite easily probably the best one to come out since Mighty Morphin. And the reason why I say that is because even though it was only 32 episodes long, they did so many things right with the series that some people can't even do for regular TV shows. And that is, well, for one, now the first thing that made this different was, unlike the other Ranger series, they weren't in the same universe. Like, through various crossover episodes, it was revealed that all the Ranger series that have been released are in the same, they're all the same Earth. It's not like each one has a different Earth. But RPM, it was a different universe, where a computer virus takes over the technology of the world and uses that to create a robot army to take over the world. It's not about stopping the takeover of the world. The series is about the Rangers defending the last human city on Earth. Yeah. What? Yes. So, that's what made it different right off the bat, and that made it more interesting. The next thing that made it very interesting was something that hasn't even been achieved, never done before in any of the other series, and that is backstory, character and backstory. For the most part, the main Rangers, they were just like, okay, we were average people or semi, good, semi, talented people, and that's why we were picked. These people, this backstories, focused on how each and every one of these Rangers and the quote-unquote mentor character, because each series has a mentor-type character, how each one of them were living such intensely flawed lives before the attack, and after the virus's army attacked the world, it kind of gave them the opportunity to change and be heroes, basically, and benefit the world. And the plot was just got better from there. And so the plot, the character development, and the character interactions and the scale of being like in a post-apocalyptic world where they're the only human city left, made the perfect combination for a good series, which other series of other TV shows should look at. It should come to show you that if you give it a good plot and good characters development, and that even a children's series like Power Rangers could be better than some of the adult series, because they can't pull these off. You know what I mean? Are you even still listening? I know, I went on a long tangent there, but...
Whoa, hold on.
I know you were paying attention, Strider, so don't sit there and pretend like you were sleeping.
I wasn't sleeping, but I kind of zoned out there.
Oh, shut up. But anyway, that's what I was watching. In terms of what I've been playing, I've only been playing one thing, and I believe I mentioned it last week but the only thing I've been really playing is, in terms of games, is the app on my phone, Plants vs. Zombies 2. It's about time. Now, they've come out with other Plant vs. Zombie games, but this one is the true sequel to the original. You know, they came out with a Facebook game version of the game, which was stupid, and then you had that console game, the Garden Warfare, which I never played, but didn't look interesting. But this one, I enjoy thoroughly enough that I'm still playing it, you know, and has a decent gameplay. Is good, and you know, and since it's like basically kind of like a puzzle game. It's not really a plot per se, but it's challenging, it's fun, but I believe it's a playdown. But that's beside the point. That pretty much covers what I've been watching and playing.
All right.
And this is why I'm Lord of Speechcraft.
Yes.
And for those of you listening to this, you'll only understand it if you read Tale of Iron by Strider Zero.
Solomon,
so go on the
Lord of
forum and read it. You can find out what that means.